Welcome to my top 5 books of 2024. We're about to find out which books sucked and which books fucked. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, leave a rating, hit the notification bell, follow my Twitter, like my MySpace, reblog me on Tumblr, and poke me on Facebook. Before we begin, let's start with the 3 worst books I read in 2024. Starting off the dishonorable mentions, the 3rd worst book I read this year was The Warded Man by Peter V. Brett. While The Warded Man features a fun base concept around demons and wards, this fantasy hero story is about as vanilla as it gets, all while leaving many main characters outside of Arlen half-baked. Worst of all, the lone female character, Leisha, has her entire plot revolve around her virginity and her inability to find a suitable husband. Peter Brett tops off her storyline with a horrifying rape scene, which tells the reader just how much knowledge this author has about writing about women. If your story is going to be this derivative, spare the reader by leaving the sexual assault at home. Number 2 worst book of 2024 was The King of Elfland's Daughter by Lord Dunsany. This story is a beautifully written work of art that I could barely bring myself to read. The pacing was glacial and the prose was flowery to its detriment. This book saves itself from being the worst of the year due to the evidence of the author's passion within the text, and nothing more. This book works better than a single edible before bed in terms of sleep aids. And the worst book of the year award goes to Raft by Stephen Baxter. It's outstanding that this book won awards, since it's almost completely unreadable. The plot was confusing with very little structure, the writing was completely juvenile, and the characters were all stupid. Having to read this book was the equivalent of opening up what you thought would be a Hyperion-type novel, and then boom, you're reading The Very Hungry Caterpillar. On second thought, The Very Hungry Caterpillar clears this book. Just don't bother with Raft at all. Now, we can get to the good stuff. Here's my top 5 books of the year. Beginning at number 5, we have The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie. This was an addicting fantasy epic that contains some of the best batch of characters I've read, point blank period. The last 250 pages of The Blade Itself are truly lightning in a bottle, and it's hard to think of a novel that has kept my attention this hard before. The main problem holding The Blade Itself back is the first half of the book, as you trudge through the world building that sets the scene for the second act. Obviously, this doesn't kill the hype for the whole novel, but when comparing Terrell Owens to Randy Moss, you have to nitpick a little bit. At number 4, we have Down and Out in Paris and London by George Orwell. A late entry into the list, this semi-autobiographical account characterizes the plight that many homeless people face day in and day out. You don't read this book for a fun time where the hero wins in the end. You sit your white ass down to read this book to get some new perspective, which Orwell provides in droves. This is the most boring/interesting book that I've ever read, as nothing actually happens in this novel, yet you can't help but stay captivated all the while. Always remember, you're closer to becoming as down on your luck as the characters in this book than you are to becoming a billionaire. Treat everyone with respect, except for billionaires. Rest in peace, Luigi Mangione. You will be sorely missed. Number 3, best book of the year is Watchmen by Alan Moore. While it's not exactly considered a book by my snobby standards, I have to include this graphic novel due to its sheer craftsmanship. Every panel is iconic, with an insane amount of detail put into each drawing. The story is no slouch either, as the menagerie of characters make each dialogue box feel alive, each panel a painting. Even if you hate superhero media, you have to read this book. I can confidently say it's better than the new Venom movie. The second best book of the year for me was Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas by Hunter S. Thompson. This book exudes a certain chaotic temperament that is rarely pulled off to the extent seen in this book. You legitimately feel like you're on drugs while reading this book, as Hunter and his lawyer blast through the desert high on drugs you've never even heard of in order to cover a race. Personally, I would love to indulge in all these illegal drugs, just on the off chance I can become as great of a writer as Hunter S. Thompson. And finally, the best book I read in the year of our Lord 2024 is Ubik by Philip K. Dick. In Ubik, Dick has stroked his pen and squirted out yet another masterpiece. After reading The Man in the High Castle last year and thinking highly of that as well, I've come to accept our PKD overlords. This chode of a novel feels like it's double its length, in a good way, as Dick takes the reader through his inner mind psychosis with all of the religious allegory you could ask for. Ubik will provide a tasty treat for sci-fi fans and normal people alike. I've now decided to put PKD's entire bibliography on my TBR list, which surely won't leave me disappointed. That wraps up my list of the best books of 2024, which should be held in high regard as my reading tastes are better than most. Stay tuned for next year's edition, where I struggle to read 10 books as I feel my brain deteriorating from the copious amounts of YouTube shorts I consume rather than opening my book every night. Surely I can break that habit, right?